Millionaires of Reddit. How did you become wealthy? Story 1. I live in Eastern Europe. In 1990, I took out a huge loan and bought 10 furnished apartments. I rented them out, using the income to cover the loan payments. I have repeated this process every 10 years. Now, I own 30 apartments and employ one person to manage maintenance and ensure payments are handled. The key is finding reliable tenants and maintaining a good relationship with them. It's not too difficult, but it's essential to this strategy. Story 2. In my 20s, I was a computer programmer just as the web was beginning to explode in popularity. I could build websites and databases at a time when internet technologies were new and tooling was still primitive. I never struck it big with a viral website like Facebook or Amazon, but I charged high rates for my programming services. I used that money to buy houses at first and eventually an apartment building in coastal California. Now in my 40s, I don't really feel very wealthy. Oddly, I still check prices when shopping, and I plan to drive my old Jeep until it dies. When I travel, I often pay to fly first class and enjoy staying in nicer hotels. But other than that, I live and spend rather simply. Story 3. Well, last year, my fiancé's grandparents won a ridiculous amount of money in the lottery, double-digit millions. They were generous enough to share it with the family. I grew up below the poverty line, so my life feels surreal right now. Edit. First, I'm a woman. Second, I'm actively doing something with my life. I'm not just idly mooching off a lucky break. His money is in a trust managed by financial advisors, and we can't make major purchases without approval. Anything we don't use is invested by the bank that oversees the trust. I'm not really looking for advice since I'm simply enjoying the benefits. So far, we bought my fiancé's childhood home, the one his father built, which is in one of the most sought-after neighborhoods in my city. We love the security of being homeowners. In June, we took an incredible trip, and he proposed on the banks of the River Ness in Inverness, Scotland. It was pretty magical. And no, my ring is not extravagant. Having this money hasn't changed our relationship. We spent a year and a half living in a tiny bachelor suite, about the size of a one-car garage, and still love each other just as much. At this point, it's a done deal. We're in it for life and getting married next. I also signed a cohabitation agreement, but we agreed that I won't be signing a prenup. After we're married, my name will be added to the title of the house, and the cohabitation agreement will be nullified. This means that, in the highly unlikely event of a divorce, I'll be entitled to half of everything except the trust, since it's owned by his grandparents, and he is only a beneficiary. Pretty wild stuff. I'm honestly surprised they didn't insist on a prenup. Story 4. I enlisted in the Army when I was 18, and I liked it. I requested to become an officer, and they approved it. The Army sent me to college, and I graduated. As an officer, my pay was significantly higher, and since there aren't many expenses in the military, I was able to save between $1,000 and $5,000 every month. After my second deployment, I had around $200,000 saved. I hired a financial manager, and he did well for me over the years. I've also bought and rented out a few houses. I've now been in the Army for 17 years, steadily building my portfolio, which is creeping toward $2 million, along with a solid pension for retirement. I'm about to be promoted to lieutenant colonel, and I'm in my late 30s. Just grind and save. I should add that this job really sucks, and I hate it a lot of the time. But because of the ups and downs of financial motivation, I need to stick with it for a few more years. Story 5. Not there yet, but getting there. Both my wife and I have STEM degrees. I bring my lunch to work and drink from the water fountain. I eat out with coworkers maybe once a month. Every day, I fill up my trusty clean canteen bottle with free ice from the cafeteria and water from the fountain. I'm in my early 30s. We bought a $500,000 house 2 years ago, and it's about 40% paid off. I hope to pay it off completely well before I turn 40. We currently have about $350,000 in the bank, split between liquid savings and stocks. I drive a 9-year-old Scion, and my wife has a 13-year-old Camry. Our daughter's toys come from thrift stores. We've never had cable TV. We love Costco and Walmart and enjoy browsing deal sites. That doesn't mean we don't enjoy life. We've been backpacking in Europe, visited Dubai, the Bahamas, Bermuda, Puerto Rico, and Canada multiple times, and taken numerous trips to Vegas. We're heading to California in less than a month. My philosophy is this: You get rich by acting poor in areas that don't truly bring you joy. We love traveling, so we prioritize that. I enjoy photography, so I have a DSLR. My wife loves nail polish, so she has a big box full of them. I don't care much about food, so I pack my meals and we rarely eat out. The same goes for our cars. Live simply, invest, and spend wisely. Love unconditionally. Story 6. At last, my time to shine. I was never particularly good in school. I could read, write, and do basic math, but nothing beyond that. However, I really enjoyed woodworking and anything that involved working with my hands. I left school as soon as I could because I wanted to move out. For a while, I lived in pretty rough places, barely scraping by on minimum wage in retail and hospitality. Then, a friend of mine pointed out that I could probably make some money on the side with my woodworking. He had seen some of the pieces I had made around the house. Back then, there was no Etsy, so I had to figure things out on my own. I made whatever I thought people might like and tried to sell it through classified ads and flyers in local shops. I couldn't believe it when I sold my first piece, even though, after calculating the time I had spent on it, I hadn't even made minimum wage. But I stuck with it. I started making different ornaments that people liked and eventually moved on to commissions. Things picked up, and before long, I was able to quit my awful job and do woodworking full-time. Within a couple of years of selling my first piece, I was getting more requests than I could handle, though I was still only making an okay living. Then, almost exactly 3 years after my first sale, I had a motorcycle accident and lost the use of my left hand. Fortunately, it wasn't my dominant one. To keep things going, I decided to bring in a couple of local homeless guys to help out, offering them meals and a share of the profits. While this allowed us to produce and sell more pieces, I actually ended up making less money once everything was divided up. To make things worse, a couple of them ripped me off and stole a lot of my work. I was back to square one. I shifted my focus to simpler, quicker to make pieces. And then, my mother passed away and left me $1 million. Story 7. Not me, but my family. My dad grew up extremely poor as one of 5 kids raised by a single mother after my grandfather passed away when my dad was around 11 or 12. He moved out at 17 after finishing his HSC, the Aussie equivalent of the SATs, and went straight to work. He worked a lot, and since he's really smart, he excelled at what he did. My parents weren't supposed to be able to have kids, but when they were both 40, they conceived me. Around that time, my dad had just started his own business in the tech industry. He believed in himself and the 2 friends he started the company with, and it paid off. The business took off. My mom hasn't worked since I was born because she stayed home to take care of me. When I started school, she got heavily involved in charity work. She later became pregnant again, but my little brother was stillborn when I was 3, so I remained an only child. This year, both of my parents turned 60, and my dad retired because his business had been incredibly successful. We live in a nice house, but most of our money goes to charity. My dad knows what it's like to have nothing. The rest goes to family. One Christmas, he gave his mother, my Nana, and all 4 of his siblings $10,000 each, a total of $50,000 in 1 year. I never asked for money. I legally got a job as soon as I could, at 14 and 9 months, and have worked ever since while attending school. My dad instilled a strong work ethic in me, and my parents never spoiled me, even though they could have. I'm 21 now, still living at home while finishing university and working my first full-time job. I plan to move out as soon as I find a place that allows me to bring my dog. Technically, my parents are millionaires, but I'm not. It's not my money. When they pass, I'll likely divide their wealth between family and charity. Going to a private high school taught me that money doesn't buy happiness, so I have no interest in keeping more than I need to be comfortable. I hadn't even thought about inheritance until I was forced to. My dad had 2 heart attacks this year. His father and grandfather both died of heart attacks in their 30s. Not that anyone cares, but he's doing much better now. A few stents, a lot of rehabilitation, and he's almost back to normal. Story 8. I basically kept the same habits I had when my income was $12,000 a year for a family of 3. I make coffee at home, I still forage for food, and I shop at thrift stores for clothing. My car is 14 years old, and I try not to use it if I can bike instead, including biking to work when I wasn't carpooling. Even when I was a single mom making $28,000 a year, I contributed whatever I could to my 401k, and every raise I got went toward that until I at least reached the full employer match. When I got a new job and realized there was no similar retirement plan, I met with the directors and a financial advisor and helped set one up. I make my own laundry detergent and use cloth wipes and napkins. I spend about $20 a week on food for 2 adults. Yesterday, I really wanted an orange, but I didn't take one from the fridge because I bought them specifically for my husband's packed lunches. Pears from our yard are free, so I eat those instead. Oranges travel better in his bike bag, so they're for him. Pears sometimes have spots that need to be cut out, so they're for me. I retired last year, while he still has another year or 2 to go. It's easier to cut out bad spots when you're at home in your own kitchen. But honestly, I am so tired of pears. I have $1 million, but I won't eat an orange if I have a free pear. On one hand, that's kind of pathetic. On the other hand, that's exactly why I have $1 million and don't have to work anymore. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, activate the notification bell, and share a similar story or anything you'd like to say in the comments. See you next time.